Thanks everybody for joining. As Philippa said, we're gonna build an agent to automate some LinkedIn posting for us. It's actually technically it's going to be two agents because we're going to do a brand voice agent too. So we'll start with a brand voice agent, effectively building an agent that can communicate like you or like your brand, and then we'll pair that with the LinkedIn agent. So the LinkedIn agent will get our half-formed thoughts from a Slack channel where we can put them whenever we choose or whenever something occurs to us. It'll retrieve those half-formed thoughts from Slack. It will turn them into a nicely drafted LinkedIn post, and then it will use the brand voice agent that we're going to build first to redraft them so it sounds more like you. And if all goes to plan, it will send that back to a Slack channel where you then will get a notification that you can read. You can read the draft that it's written, and then you can jump to Autohive and say that's approved, and it will post it directly to LinkedIn for you. So that's the plan. We'll keep our fingers crossed and make sure we get no hiccups. But before I share my screen, I kind of just want to emphasize that nobody doing this stuff is an expert yet, right? This technology hasn't been around that long, so people who claim to be experts, I reckon, deserve a little bit of a side eye. So we're all kind of learning as we go. Some find it easier than others to an extent. It depends how you're wired, I think. But remember that if you're just getting started, you're not that far behind, right? Most people are just getting started. So today, to make sure we get through everything, I probably am going to have to move reasonably quickly, but I've been assured that this is being recorded. So if you want to build exactly what I'm going to build, you can go back to the recording and do that on half speed or something if you want. But I'll apologize in advance. I hope it's not too much of a fire hose of information. But another thing that I want to emphasize is that I'm here to sort of teach the concepts by showing a use case. It's not about here's how to build this exact use case. It's here's how you can work with these tools and this technology to build all kinds of use cases. So don't get too hung up if you're trying to follow along and you get lost, and don't think, oh, I have to come back to the recording and build that exact thing. Come back to the recording, of course, but do so to pick up on the concepts and then think about how you can apply them to something that you want to build. Maybe it's different to this. So with that, I'll share my screen and we'll get stuck into what Autohive looks like. And I'll start by talking to how I think about the three sort of dials that you can turn or tweak with an agent. So let me just share this. Cool. Are you guys seeing this? Awesome. Right. So this is the Autohive platform. When you first come in here, you'll see a starter workspace and another workspace with a name that I've forgotten now. For this session, if you're going to do some work along with me, if you click on the word workspaces and go create workspace, that's an important tip, because the first two workspaces that you have in here you cannot delete. So you don't want to muck about in a session like this and build stuff that isn't maybe perfect for your use case and then not be able to delete it. So see this workspace called Google Reviews Manager, which is another one I was messing about with. I have got a delete workspace option here, but in my starter workspace, I haven't got that. So if you click on workspaces and go create workspace, let's do this. And I'll go, whoops, LinkedIn agents. You can leave that as is public or as not. The only difference there is if you have others in an organization in the same plan, it means that your workspace is discoverable, and if they choose, they can join it. I've just left it as is for now. So the next thing you might want to do is click on the plus and go to Browse Agents. And these are all pre-built agents that we've built and provided in the platform for you to use as a way to kind of get started. So there are some important ones in here. Brand Voice Analyzer I'm going to use shortly, and we'll build the brand voice agent with that. What else have we got that's really helpful? Fact Checker can be really helpful. You can provide the Fact Checker agent as a tool for another agent to use. So if you're working on something important with another agent, you can say every now and again, use your Fact Checker and make sure you're not bullshitting me effectively. And it will use that tool to do that. So that one's useful. Prompt writer is an important one as we get into building sort of complex multi-step agents, which is kind of what we'll build today. So it helps to write the instructions for the agent that it will then follow. Use case brainstormer. This is another one that I'm going to demo today. And the idea of use case brainstormer is you can come to it either with no idea what you want to build, or a half-formed idea or a question like, could I automate that with Autohive? And it will extract information from you by asking useful questions, and it will move you towards eventually producing, or it will produce a really detailed brief for the agent or the workflow of agents that you need to build. And it can then go a step further if you want it to, and use prompt writer to write those instructions for the agent. So you start by asking it a question, you get all the way to the point where it says, here's a detailed brief for what you need to build. Would you like me to use prompt writer and get the instructions? And it will do all of those things. And then all we've got to do is copy and paste the instructions. So when we're building agents or thinking about agents, I think about three sort of core elements that they have. One is knowledge base. So up here in Autohive, there's a content area, and you can drop files in here. And then you can either attach them to an agent, or you can build an agent that can see the whole content area, and then you can say, go and have a look for this one file, whatever. So that's the knowledge base aspect. That's number one, I guess. You don't have to give agents knowledge base documentation. There are use cases where you won't want to, but it's a powerful way to influence how they respond to you. The second is the agent's instructions, and that is what prompt writer can help with. Over here, prompt writer can help with that. And I'll just jump to creating a new agent page so you can see where those live. So ignore this agent creator for now. We can speak to that later, but we're gonna build these in a slightly different way. Agent creator can populate this whole page for us by us just telling it what we want, but we're gonna do it the old-fashioned way today so that we get the hang of it. So this is where the agent's instructions will go, and this is the single most important dial that you can turn or tweak to build an agent that is effective. And it's the difference between an 80% useful agent and 110% useful agent. And it's usually in the things that aren't included where the agent goes off script. So if you don't have the right constraints or limits on how the agent can act and what it can do, then that's where it tends to go off script. And it's harder to diagnose because it's not there, right? If something's missing and that's where it's finding a reason to do something different, it's harder to diagnose than if something is there. So the system instructions or the agent instructions or the system prompt, those are all the same thing. And that's the most important dial that you can turn. The third one is the tools that the agent can use. So in Autohive, this list of available tools or integrations is growing every day. This is how it looks right now. And when you add a tool, you can also see each individual capability and choose whether you want that agent to have that capability or not. So for example, if I give an agent the Google or the Gmail tool, by default, it's got every single one of these capabilities, and I might not want it to send email, right? So I could deselect that, and then I could come down here and go, all I want you to do is create a draft. So that's the only scope you've got. You can't do anything else. And then it's physically impossible for it to send them. But if you attach that tool and you don't carefully select, then even though you've asked it to only create drafts, it might confidently tell you I've created the draft when it's actually sent the email. So that's a useful little tool. So those are the three core elements. There is a fourth that I don't really need to speak to just now, which is hidden in the advanced settings area, which is temperature. Let me pick a model where we have temperature control. So temperature, as it says here, is a control of how creative you might want the agent to be. And there are use cases where you would want some creativity, and there are use cases where you might want zero. So if you were building a data analysis agent, for example, you would want zero creativity, you want science, you want maths. But if you're building a creative writing agent, then 0.7 is probably about right. And the reason that it defaults to 0.7 is if you're talking to ChatGPT or Claude in their user interfaces, the generally accepted wisdom is that they're running at about 0.7. So it should be a fairly familiar experience if you don't touch temperature, and it's fine if you don't. If you crank it all the way up to 1, you might start to get some interesting responses. It's worth playing with. I rarely go above 0.7, but if you want to play with it, you might find some interesting responses. So those are the 3: knowledge base, agent instructions, and tools. And if you want to go to a 4th, it's time to start tweaking temperature. So the first agent that we're going to build, and Philippa was really organized and asked you guys to bring some brand voice examples, I think, or some examples of your writing. So if you've got those, awesome. If you haven't, don't worry about it. But to build our brand voice agent, we're going to go to Browse Agents, and we're going to grab Brand Voice Analyzer. And I'm going to drop this inside the workspace by pressing Get Agent. One other thing actually to think about with Autohive is think of workspaces as a way to divide up work into projects or teams. Don't think about a workspace as for your organization, because if you add a Gmail tool to an agent in Starter Workspace, for example, and you never create more workspaces, that Gmail tool can only be used in that workspace for everyone, and it's authenticated with your own Gmail. So there are reasons where you might create a private workspace just for you and authenticate your own tools so nobody else can get in there and use them. So don't be scared to create workspaces. In my own personal account, I've got loads of them. So think about them as a way to divide up work effectively. So the Brand Voice Analyzer is designed, it will step us through the process of getting to our own brand voice agent. So it's going to produce the agent instructions for the brand voice agent that will talk just like me, or actually in this use case, just like Autohive, complete with a load of bee puns and stuff like that. So I'll just say, I want to get started on my agent, please. So every conversation with this agent starts more or less the same way. It's walking you through how does it work. So I analyze your writing samples and you'll get complete system instructions. So I've got some writing samples here already. I presume at the end here it says ready to get started. Go ahead, share your writing samples. So here's some that I made earlier. I'm just going to copy all of these and drop them into the chat. And you can either you can attach a PDF or a Word document, or you can just paste them in. It doesn't really matter. And what we're going to get back now from the Brand Voice Analyzer is a summary of what makes this communication style unique, and then some system instructions for an agent that will emulate this unique style of conversation. So if we jump higher up here, it says your unique voice profile for the queen bee. It's made up that name. I gave it some generated examples that I asked specifically to make sure they were very bee themed. So that's why it's gone that way. Tone playful, positive, buzzing with excitement. When you do this for your own or for your brand, this is actually really interesting to read about what makes it unique, and make sure that it's accurate. And when you build your own brand voice agent, you can do it in as specific a way as you want, right? You can use this agent as many times as you like to create the end result. So if you want an agent that drafts your emails, you could give it only email examples, right? And then it's going to emulate your email voice really well. If you want one that only posts to LinkedIn, only give it LinkedIn examples. But if you want a slightly more generic one that you can use to do everything from writing blog posts to posting to LinkedIn to whatever, then you can give it mixed examples and you'll get instructions that will emulate kind of all of those different things. So don't be scared of this code block. This agent is instructed to output the instructions this way. That's just because a language model likes to see real nice structure like this in the instructions. All we've got to do is press copy, and then we're going to go across to create agent, and we'll call this Autohive brand voice. Now I've dropped those instructions into the agent instructions box. I will tweak this. I'm going to turn it down to a slightly smaller, cheaper model because we don't need the big heavy hitters just for effectively redrafting content. I'll leave it at 0.7. If I turned it all the way down to 0, it might not reference the instructions quite as well as you would like it to. It might not be as fun or as creative. Also, if I turn it up to 1, it'll go way over the top. Maybe we'll turn it up a bit, actually. I'll turn it up to 0.9 and we'll see what we end up with in the end result later. So the brand voice agent doesn't need any other tools at this stage. You could give it any of these, but its job when we're finished, it's going to be used as a tool by another agent. So all it has to do is take in the text that it's going to redraft and redraft it for us. It doesn't need access to the content area because there are no files up here for it to use. We can leave web search access on. I don't think it would need to access the internet for anything, but we can allow it the ability to do so. I redraft content, so. You can't leave this box blank, unfortunately. So if you try and create your agent and you miss that one, or you're not sure why the create button isn't working, it's probably because you've missed the box at the bottom. We need to fix that. Cool. So that's one agent down, right? That was pretty quick. Brand voice analyzer makes that process quite easy. And remember, you can do that as many times as you like. So I've messed about with this in the past and made ChatGPT provide me 10 emails sent by Gandalf the Grey. And then you can make a brand voice agent of Gandalf the Grey just to see how unique the communication is when you use an agent like that. So now that we've got our brand voice agent, we're going to move on to the slightly more complex agent, and we'll use use case brainstormer to get us over the line here. And effectively, in this process, what I want you to think about is like Autohive, or what we're hoping to get to with Autohive, and the agent creator that I just showed you briefly on the agent settings page is the first part of this. Is if you can explain the problem, you can automate it now. So if you can clearly articulate, one, the problem you're trying to solve, but two, the process that makes sense to you to have that problem solved using this technology, it can be done. Unless there's an integration missing, for example, which there is in some cases with Autohive. But if we're integrated with the tools that you already use, if you can articulate the problem, it can be automated. So the prompt that I'm going to use here, let me grab use case brainstormer first. So I'll go back to browse agents. And I'll come down here to use case brainstormer, PQRST, there it is. Now we've got it inside this workspace again, and I'm going to use quite a long prompt, and I'm actually going to use my voice to prompt it because you guys don't want to sit there and watch me type this out. I can also probably provide the prompt in the chat so that if anybody's building along, then they can do that. Let me just see if I can grab that. Just bear with me. Chat, here we go. Oh, it's actually slightly too long. I'll send it in 2 messages. Hang on. So that's the first half. And that's the rest of it. And now I'm going to effectively speak to those bullet points, and we'll see how we get on with use case brainstorm. Oh. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to use my voice. It doesn't like it right now. So I'll just drop in that prompt.
Cool. And I'll also share the prompt after the session as well, on a separate document, so everyone has access to it when they're watching this again and playing along.
Awesome. Thank you. There is this little voice input button does work, and you can click on it and then start talking, and it will transcribe what you said. But I think it only has a 1 minute limit at the moment, and it would take me more than a minute to speak this. So I'm just going to drop it in. So use case brainstormer, remember, it works to get you towards a brief for the agent that you want to build. So if you have a half-formed idea, it will help you get it to a fully formed state. And if you have no idea, you can just tell it the kind of work that you do and the kind of problems that you have, and it will start hashing out the brief with you. So it's saying this is a fantastic and very practical use. Based on what you've described, I've got a clear picture of the goal regarding, so it tries to figure out the stakes with you, right? So if this is high stakes, let's say it was sending emails from your Gmail inbox. That's quite scary, right? It's public facing, high stakes. It can't get it wrong. So in that scenario, it might recommend a different approach to something that's internal. In this case, it will have the ability to post to LinkedIn, but only after having a human in the loop approve it. So it's saying, by posting publicly to your professional LinkedIn profile, would you agree this is high stakes? Okay, yeah, I agree, but there's a human in the loop, so we'll tell them that in a second. For complexity, you've outlined a great multi-step process. Check Slack, draft a post, rewrite it using another agent, send a draft. Yeah, this is fairly complex given that. So it's recommending a workflow. I'm just going to say, okay, for now, we're keeping this to a single agent. And the stakes aren't super high because we've got a human in the loop approving. Excellent. It might take a bit of persuasion here. It might be like, oh, are you sure? I still recommend a workflow. Let's see.
And Joe, a question. So for this use case brainstormer, can we just download
Yep.
like I'm finding doing budgeting in the office really time consuming and reconciling. Can you help me with some
Yep.
ideas for agents? Is it going to be useful at that higher level? Or do I need to think through going, okay, budgeting is really hard. It's this specific process that I really need help with.
You can try both. What it doesn't have yet, but it will have very soon, is knowledge of all of the integrations available in the platform. The agent creator on that in the right sidebar on the settings page, that does have that knowledge, but it doesn't have the same brain in terms of problem solving that use case brainstormer does. So short answer is yes, try it. It will be helpful in either scenario. And as soon as it's got knowledge of the integrations, it'll go from an 8 to a 10 out of 10 in terms of how well it can help. I'm hoping to get that out soon. I'm kind of waiting for Gemini 3 because Gemini 3 is going to be the best model for this. So before we don't need to fix it twice. We'll wait till Gemini 3 comes out. So I've managed to persuade it that we can do this with one single agent. That's good. You will start the agent manually in an Autohive chat. So the answer to that is yes, but what we're going to do is schedule it so it can run, say, weekly or at whatever cadence you would like to post. We can schedule the agent, and I'll speak to that at the end. But I don't want to confuse this process by saying to it, oh, we're going to schedule it. There's a scheduling area in Autohive, because it'll start to try and take control of that situation, and it just doesn't need it. So yes, you will start the agent manually in Autohive. That's fine. Fetch idea. The agent will use the Slack tool to read the most recent messages from the LinkedIn ideas channel. So let me pull up Slack, and I've created a couple of channels already to do this. And if you want to do that as well, you just go to the 3 dots next to there and go create channel. You can choose to make it private. And in order to get the channel ID, which you can provide if you want extra points to the agent, at the moment, I've only given it the title of the channel, but if you want to be double sure, you can get the channel ID, which means the agent should hopefully be bulletproof in terms of where it can post to. To do that, you go open channel details once you're in the channel, and in the About tab down at the bottom, there's the channel ID. This is a demo Slack, so for now, I'm just going to leave them out, and we'll see where it ends up posting. Channel IDs, when you're posting into a private channel in a public Slack, probably a better idea. Otherwise, you bombard people with notifications about messages that are only meant for you. So draft the post. It will expand that idea into a LinkedIn post. The agent will then use the Brown Voice agent tool to rewrite the draft in your specific. Yeah, okay. Wait for command. Let's just check that channel name was drafts for approval. No, it's drafts to approve. So it would probably figure it out, but I'll just correct it there. The channel name for the drafts to approve is called drafts to. The brand voice agent is called Autohive brand voice. Who will post the rewritten drafts? Wait for command, publish.
Yeah. And just for context, guys, like
Yeah.
the idea for this LinkedIn agent is recognizing that, a lot of us are short for time. Sometimes, we wake up early in the morning or late at night and we've got like an idea for a post, right? But we don't really action it because we're in the midst of something else. So now we can just drop an idea into into Slack, for example, or another tool that we might use to capture ideas and thoughts. And all of a sudden, this agent's going to grab that thought and take it through into the process from thought, channel it through this agent, and the end result obviously is a LinkedIn post. So these are the steps within it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's designed to take some friction out of the process, right? Rather than changing too much how you normally do this, it's like, how do I make this easier? And if you're out walking the dog and you have an epiphany that you want to post on LinkedIn about, you can whip up the Slack app on your phone and drop it in the channel and forget about it. And then once this agent is built and scheduled, it'll just pick that idea up next time it runs. And you've got a LinkedIn post that's authentic and unique to you. And you thought about it and wrote it down at the time when it happened. If you're not a Slack user, you can find other integrations in the platform that make more sense, right? You could drop it into drafts in Gmail or in Outlook and have the agent retrieve the draft every time, maybe. Different ways to do it. So remember, we're learning the concepts rather than this exact use case. Let's say otherwise all looks good. Yeah. So what I'm expecting soon from this agent is, so now it's writing a brief. And when it's finished writing this detailed brief, which we haven't got time to read super carefully, but we're going to just blindly trust it. Now it's saying, would you like me to pass this brief to the specialist prompt writer agent to generate the final system instructions? So I'll just say, yes, please. That would be great. So this might take a minute or two. We'll see it make a tool call in a second. Something will appear in the chat, which is the icon of this agent. Yeah, here we are. So generating system instructions from the project brief for the LinkedIn content assistant. So the other agent is writing our instructions. When it's ready, we'll go and create this agent and we'll give it the Autohive brand voice agent that we built first as a tool that it can use. And then we'll ask it, right, go and have a look at Slack and see if you can find any ideas. And because we're live, right, we're one-shotting this all the way. And when you're doing this yourself, you can spend as long as you want fixing this up. If, for example, these instructions are kind of working, but it's posting in the wrong channel, or it's not finding the right channel to retrieve the ideas, you can copy the instructions and then pull up prompt writer and say to prompt writer, you gave me these instructions for this agent. It's not really working because it can't find the Slack channel where the ideas live. And then if you also provided the system instructions, it will go, okay, I can see what the problem is here. The channel ID is not in the instructions, only the channel name is. Let's try putting the ID in. Can you go get the channel ID? And then that's effectively an evaluation of the system instructions. It will give you version 2. You can paste them back in and test it. So that's the evals process in a nutshell. That's a bit of a quick and dirty way to do evals, but it works. I'm hoping we don't have to do any rounds of evals here, but we've got these instructions. So I'm going to hit copy, and we're going to create another agent. And I'll just paste those in there, and I'll go LinkedIn Content Assistant. Pick a profile image. Now, another thing to make note of or keep in mind is when you're using tools with an agent, and this agent is going to use Slack, it's going to use another agent, and it's going to use LinkedIn, some models are better than others at using those tools. So if you find that you feel like the instructions have been well written, but the agent is struggling to make the use of the tool, the first thing I would do is change the model. Come back here and say, right, if you're using ChatGPT 5, then try an Anthropic model, one of the Claude models. If you're not familiar with models, it doesn't matter too much, really. As you do this more and more, you'll find the big reasoning models are good for multi-step agents like this one. So I'm going to use, I think I'll use GPT-5 for this. It's a heavy-hitting reasoning model, and it should be able to work through the steps that we need to get this process done. We're going to give it the tools that it needs. So it needs Slack. Where have we got Slack? There it is. Again, we'll leave all these scopes on, but there might be times where you don't want it to have all this capability. Now that's come up saying requires authentication, so we'll sort that out in a second. We'll give it the LinkedIn tool as well. Again, this one will require authentication, and we'll give it our Autohive brand voice agent. So when you open up tools and integrations, you'll see you default to the integrations tab, but there's a sneaky little button there for agents. And if you go across to agents, you can then apply any agent that's inside the same workspace as a tool to the agent that you're working on. So we've given it the Autohive brand voice agent. You can choose whether you need to approve the use of that agent by this other agent. We don't need to in most cases. There might be times where you do. For example, if it's using a Gmail tool, you might always want it to require approval. So let's just go through this authentication process. And this is another little point to think about is you can authorize the use of a tool either to the workspace that you're in or to the whole plan. So if you authorized I keep using Gmail, but if you authorize Gmail to everyone in the plan, then they can create their own workspaces and they can use your Gmail account to send and read email. So be very careful doing that. There might be a time where you might do that, right? If you're a marketing team and you monitor an inbox marketing app, then you might want that across the whole plan. But again, I would probably still just do that inside a workspace. In my experience, there are limited uses for authorizing across the whole plan, but it is possible. In our own internal Autohive, for example, we have Slack authorized in the whole plan because no one uses any other Slack, right? We're all in the same Slack space. So regardless of which workspace, if you want to use the Slack tool, you can use the internal one. Let's just finish off that process. And we're going to put it in the demo one. Okay, so we'll just get rid of agent creator. So that's Slack authenticated. Let's do LinkedIn. I haven't got a demo LinkedIn, so I'm going to have to use my own. That's all right. We'll post to it anyway. And we've got the other agent. The last thing that I'm going to do in Slack, which might just take one error step out of this process, is I'm going to add the Autohive app to the channels that we want it to be able to access. So if I just go at Autohive and press send, it should ask me, do you want to add this to this channel? Oh, it's actually already in this channel, so it's probably okay. In that case, it looks like it's already in this one as well. I'll do it again. Whoops. Sometimes when you re-authenticate a tool, it helps to re-add it to the channel. And remember that little tip of if it's having trouble with LinkedIn, provide the channel IDs as well as the channel names and see if you get any better results. Helps me with LinkedIn content. Right. So I'm going to caveat it again, but remember we're one-shotting this. Let's see how it goes. In the Slack channel, I think I have put so here, maybe I'll post this again now in case it decides it can't see it because it was a while ago.
So if it's too small for someone to read, and I'm actually struggling to read it, but basically Joe's typed into a Slack something along the lines of, I'm on a hike right now. Is that right? No, I'm on a live session right now.
Oh, no, sorry. No, it says I'm on a live session right now. along with the Wellspirit community of mums in marketing, we're working on how to build a LinkedIn posting agent that can read my ideas from Slack, blah, 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 blah. So what we're hoping now is the agent retrieves that idea and turns it into something. So let's say, can you check for new LinkedIn post ideas, please? We should see it start to use some tools to do that. It'll use the Slack tool, hopefully, if prompt writer wrote our instructions properly. Here we go. Yeah. This is always the most nerve-wracking bit.
Well, it's definitely a real life example, right? Like sometimes something works really fast, sometimes AI can work really slow.
Yep. Yep. And sometimes it doesn't work at all. Sometimes it just goes off script and goes and does something completely different. And then you've got to read every word of the system instructions to figure out what went wrong. But so far, so good. I can see the content of what I wrote inside this tool use, which is good. It's even gone to the Autohive brand voice agent, so that's awesome. That looks like it's finished. This agent is also instructed to go. Oh, remember we turned the temperature up as well. So it was one instructed to use bee metaphors, and two, the temperature's really high, so it's probably way overdoing it. It looks like it is. So what I should get, if all goes to plan, is a message in Slack now with the content of this. Interesting. It's having another go with the tool, so let's see what it does. At some stage, it should be happily finished and then send it through to Slack. And it should land in drafts to approve underneath this message. So let's go back and see. Still thinking about it.
And Joe, given you turned that temperature up in your advanced settings, and you're like, oh, the post is a little bit
Yep.
overly enthusiastic and energized, can you just write in the prompt box below, turn temperature down, or do you need to go back and manually turn the temperature setting down?
Yeah, if you wanted to permanently fix it, you would go back to the agent settings and turn the temperature down. If you just wanted to tweak that post, obviously you can just write in the box and say, maybe just turn down the bee metaphors a little bit. Whether that would be effective or not is hard to say because it's going to rewrite it with the agent that's got the high temperature, right?
Okay.
So these are things that you figure out as you go, really, I guess. Fetch the latest ideas, drafted and refined, posted the drafts to approve. So dun dun dun, let's have a look. Drafts to approve. There's a message there. Cool. We're building on how it works. So that doesn't look like the same message, right? It had emojis and stuff in it. Unless the second one it redrafted. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so this is good. Something's gone wrong. We'll see if we can fix that. What you sent to Slack doesn't match what was written by the brand voice agent. What happened? It doesn't match, does it? Big buzz alert. There should be some bees in there. You can't see the words big buzz in there at all. This is always my first step as well. When something goes wrong, I just ask the agent. I just call it out. Sometimes it's useful. Sometimes it's just complete nonsense what it comes back with. They can really confidently just make up stuff. So you've always got to be on your guard with that. In the interest of time, let's see what it says. You're right, there was a mismatch. What happened? The brand voice agent returned a B-themed version. I then posted the concise. Okay, so this is an opportunity for evaluations, right? I would take the agent instructions. I'd go back to agent settings, copy its instructions, smash those into prompt writer, and say, "Hey, this is what the agent told me happened," and literally copy and paste this, and go, "This is what the agent told me happened. I never want it to happen again. I always want the exact content that the brand voice agent wrote sent through to Slack. So please add instructions accordingly." And it'll provide version 2 and then you can paste them back in, you can test it again, see what happens. I won't do that right now. We're coming close to time to leave some space for questions. So I'll just see if I can get it to post it to LinkedIn as it is. I've seen it in Slack and I approve. Please post to LinkedIn now for me. So hopefully the next tool call that we see will be the little LinkedIn icon. For safety, I can only publish after you reply with the exact word. So that's pretty good. I'm quite happy with that, actually. Approved. Another way that this could be improved, right? And I think this is coming soon, is the ability to reply to the message in Slack and say approved instead of having to come back to the platform to approve it. If you could just hit reply the moment that notification lands, maybe you're lying in bed, you haven't even started your day, then your post has gone up before you've started the coffee machine. So at the moment, we don't have two-way comms with Slack between Slack and Autohive, but it's coming. Right, it's telling me confidently that it's done it. So let's have a look into my own LinkedIn. So it works. It says posted now. And again, there would be some evals to do here, right? Because it's posted the version that we said we didn't like in Slack because it didn't match. But I didn't go through the process of fixing up that system prompt. But that's it. I'll stop there.
Well done on that. It was really great. And I loved your analogy of, just lying in bed and before you even get up in the morning and you've just woken up with all these ideas for posts and you can just talk them into Slack. And that all of a sudden is just generating a workflow that within minutes, obviously, we were building as we went today, but literally within minutes, you get a drafted LinkedIn post there on your Slack, and eventually you'll be able to go approved and it's posted before you even get out of bed. Like, I think that's really powerful.
And hopefully the concepts are then applicable to all sorts of things. And if you've got an idea of something and you're not exactly sure how you might build agents to help with it, then use case brainstorm is your best friend. It will hopefully help you get there. Another point that I would make, I guess, is if you're paying for ChatGPT, you can use that inside Autohive, and you can also compare it with Claude or with Gemini, and you don't have to build agents in order to be able to do that. You can just go and get those agents and use them inside your workspace, and you can compare the outputs from all three of them, and then start to figure out which ones are better for which tasks. So your $20 a month, I guess, goes further in Autohive than it does by paying for just one of those platforms.
Does anyone have anything to ask Joe? I know that I had a question around when I clicked on Workspace, I couldn't find a way to create a new workspace, and whether I was clicking on the wrong thing or had a different screen, but that's just starting everyone off on questions.
Sure. My screen's still sharing, right?
Yes. Yeah. So
if you click on the word workspaces, are you saying you're not seeing create workspace? Or
let me go back in.
Yeah, you might expect it to be on this menu, but yeah, just here, create workspaces.
Okay, cool. Thanks for clarifying that.
Cool. No worries.
Awesome.
Joe, I might have missed it, but how do you get this to run like automatically, like once a week or something like that? Was that under the scheduled tab?
Yeah, I'm glad you flagged that. I forgot to show that. So on the scheduled tab, yeah, you can go create job and give the job a name. Now it's not relevant to the agent, so you can just say checks LinkedIn and drafts and posts. So then you pick your agent. In this case, it's the LinkedIn content assistant. You might say, all right, start this on Friday morning. Let's start at 6 to see if we can get a post out the door before we're out of bed. And frequency, you can go custom every 7 days and say ends never or ends after a specific date. And then this is effectively the prompt, the message that would kick it off. So the key is being generic enough to make sure that it can always follow it and it's not date specific, for example. So you just say like, please check Slack for new ideas and send through your draft suggestions to the Slack channel draft to approve. Now, I'm being quite specific there. You don't need to give it as much information as that. It'll figure out the Slack channel because it's already in its system instructions. It just minimizes the opportunities for it to do something you don't want it to do. Because if it errors silently, then a week goes by without you realizing that something went wrong. I mean, it will surface an error in Autohive. If you come back to the platform, there'll be a little red dot up here against scheduled. And when you open it up, it'll say this one didn't run or it didn't complete. But now, if we do nothing, that will start on Friday morning and follow that process. And we will effectively only know about it at the point where the Slack notification arrives with a new draft that's ready to be approved.
Cool, thank you.
Bernice has a question. Slack the best tool to use with Autohive for workflow and inputting initial data approvals?
Good question. As I touched on near the end, at the moment, the comms from Slack back to Autohive isn't there yet. So I often use it in demos like this to show sending information from Autohive into Slack in a way that's really easy. Obviously, it's retrieving ideas by going to find them, but those ideas already existed right when the agent started. So it's just getting some information. It can't listen for a response from Slack, not yet. So I just use Slack in the demos because it's where I hang out quite a lot, and it's an instant messaging thing where I always see the notifications. If your process is different, then you can use anything where being notified is important or useful, right? So that might be sending you an email or dropping something in your calendar, using Discord if you're a Discord user. I think a Meta integration is on the way, which means we'll have WhatsApp as well before long. So it's horses for courses. I use Slack because it's on my phone and my computer, but lots of different ways to solve the problem, I guess.
Joe, we use Teams a lot at Scope. Does it have an integration with Teams? Like, can it send you a Teams message?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've got Teams. Let's have a look. Yeah, there it is. So you can do Teams. Yeah. One last thing that I'll add for your crew as well is we've got an online community at Autohive. It's community.autohive.com. So if you start tinkering with the tools and you've got questions, that's the place to go. We hang out in there all the time. So the whole team is in there, and there's other users of the platform that are around to answer questions as well. So if you want to join our community, we would love to have you.
Thanks, Joe. And also tomorrow we'll be joined by Zhang. She's the VP of marketing of Autohive, and she'll be coming and giving us a whole lot of more demos of marketing related use cases. So it'll be another chance for you to get even more acquainted and familiar with how the platform works. Thank you so much, Joe. And thanks to everybody who joined us this lunchtime. Obviously, this is recorded, so everyone can go back and watch again. And everyone who wasn't able to make today's session, it will be uploaded on our YouTube channel and the recording sent through to everyone on Slack. So thanks, everybody, and really looking forward to tomorrow's session.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.